So, well, welcome everybody to the second Alpha Talks. I'm Tyler. I'm here with Martin. We're both the co-founders of Alpha Traders Country Club, and we are here with Angela. Angela is a full-time stock trader, NFT trader, all-round professional lifer. And we're just going to be asking some questions today, sort of getting to know you, Angela, and seeing how your journey's come about over the last couple of years. So,
topic of today's conversation is the first 2 years of progression. So what we're really interested in is how do you progress as a trader? If you make that decision to say, I want to be a stock trader, an options trader, a crypto trader, what are the steps that you take to make that a full-time profession? And Angela's done that beautifully. Now a head moderator and tag leader at truetrader.net. So why don't we take it away by first just asking you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background, where you come from, and what got you into trading.
Sure. So, hey guys, I'm Angela. As they mentioned, I'm from Florida. I was born in Korea. I've lived in Florida pretty much my entire life. Before this, I was not in finance at all. I was a chiropractic assistant for almost 9 years. And I think a lot of people, I've just noticed this trend, right? Like people got started in crypto in 2017, people got started in stocks and when small caps were big, like when Ricky did, and they'd come in these waves, right? And I think there was another big wave when COVID hit for obvious reasons. I'd always had a huge interest in the market. I remember one of my previous boyfriends was heavily in the market, but more of a long-term investor. I was super, super always fascinated with it. And during that time, there was a lot of extra time and a lot of uncertainty and just, I feel like everybody was in the same boat for that first little while. And so I was like, what better time than now, right? And after what felt like nonstop researching for days and nights and days and nights, a true trader really stood out to me, you know what I mean? And so I took the jump and I fully committed, and I was pretty realistic, I felt like, with myself, with my expectations, which I think is super important.
What were those expectations?
That it was going to take time, right? Like that I needed to go into this understanding that I can't expect myself to be able to do something that these people that have been doing it for many, many, many years are able to do in a matter of a couple of weeks or a month. And I think that helped me kind of going into it and just mindset wise. And then,
which is super rare, by the way. I've never met anybody that's come into this expecting this to take time. I've never met a single person that's known the road that it takes.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's the way that it's marketed. I think it's the way that, everything's pushed with the stock market. So anyway, all I'm saying is I'm very impressed that you've come into this so maturely thinking about how long it takes, because I definitely did not. And I like I said, I don't know anybody that has, and it catches everyone off guard.
Yeah, I think greed drives a lot of people into the markets, right? And so people are looking at how much money people can make, and they just want that immediate satisfaction. And I think that's true for most people that start trading. So it's definitely worth mentioning that one of the reasons that you've been so successful is that you came in with the right expectations, and you didn't plan to, you didn't burn out the first month, or blow your account. Well, maybe you did. We're going to get to that, I'm sure. If you haven't blown your account once, you're not doing it right.
I don't know about that. I mean, no. I agree. I think we all get to that point where we're like, we make that pivotal point in our career. But does it really have to be a completely blown account? Geez, that's tough. And if it does, then that's just word to everybody. Start with $200 and blow it.
Well, that's how I came into True Trader, is because I made a lot of money and then I lost a lot of money. And it was at that point that I was like, you know what, I actually do need to find mentors. I need to take this seriously and put in the work. I can't just expect to be predicting the markets all the time.
And I feel like a lot of people do have that, and that it's all that pivotal point. You know, I realized immediately it was like there was a lot of shop talk, right? And you're right, Tyler, like it's completely marketed like about all the sexiness of trading, right? And the lifestyle and how much you can make, and it's nothing, and you're done and in and out, you know. And but I knew when I kind of started looking into it that it was going to take me a little bit longer because I wasn't already familiar with all those things, right? So it was like being thrown into a country without knowing the language and no map and no translator. Right? So like, I mean, I knew right off that I needed to allow myself that time. And I remember one of our mentors there, or our head mentor, the founder there, right? When he said, if you've never traded before, you need to, you know, allow yourself at least 3 to 6 months in paper trading. And I know everybody has different views and feelings about paper trading. Like some people have a hard time being emotionally attached to it because like they can't care about it because it's not real, right? And others, you know, don't have that issue, so they're able to kind of learn the systems and kind of like the routine of everything first, and then when it becomes where it's just like you see something and it's a reaction, you're able to kind of convert over, and that emotional side is not completely gone, but at least you're not, you know, trying to figure out what you're doing and having your money at risk at the same time.
So when you, and I know that that you paper traded for a little while, when you were paper trading, did you have an account size like in mind that you wanted to start with real money and then replicate that in paper trading? Or like, because I know when I started paper trading, when I started out with a $30,000 paper trading account, and it was incredible. I made 70 grand in like, you know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
But it wasn't realistic to what you were able to
you know
do.
what I mean? So like, how did you go about that?
So I was still learning, right? And thankfully that number is adjustable. So at first it was what it was set at. And so back then when I first started, it was with TD Ameritrade. I had like an IRA account with money in it. So I was able to have my paper trading account unlocked for free. I think the minimum is like you have $500 with them somewhere. It doesn't matter where, it can be split up in a different account, still unlock it. So I think it started off at 100,000. As I started learning more about exactly what you're talking about, I did bump it down to a more realistic number of what I would be starting with. But I was still trading really small size with it, even though I could have traded as big as I wanted to trade it, or, you know, well, not as big as I wanted to trade, but no more, you know, 1% of that account size. I always did way less.
How long did you paper trade for?
Almost 5 months. So for quite a while. And, you know, we had started our study group, right? That didn't have a name yet back then. And we were all kind of going through those things together. A small group of us got together and was just kind of learning everything together. And I think that really excelled our progress a lot too, having that small group, that small intimate group of like 4 or 5 of us that, you know, we looked at each other as peers and could ask crazy questions and not feel, you know, inferior or intimidated by anything. And I think that really helped a lot in that regard. Then we started trading together in the first hour of the open and actually calling out our trades. And Tyler, you went through this, you know how this goes, but it's like something about when you're calling a trade out in front of other people. It doesn't matter if it's 4 of them, 1 of them, or a live community. Something inside of you like tells you don't want to call this trade. And if you get that feeling, that means you probably shouldn't be in the trade at all. You know what I mean? Like, something inside you tells you shouldn't be in it anyways. But when we're by ourselves and we're behind the computer desk and nobody else is around, we're just total degenerates. And we're like, yeah, click, 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 and like it's nothing. That goes for anything. The stock market, options, NFTs, it all goes the same way. But when you're sharing that information with other people, you seem to be a little bit more selective. So that helped a lot too.
It's funny because like how much that transcribes across as well into NFTs, because even buying NFTs, like I will just throw what I've got at anything. And now that we've got alpha traders and, there's a few hundred or a few thousand people that, are, oh, what do we jump on? Let's jump on this. Like, what do you think about this? Like, and I'm like, ooh, this is like, it really makes you do not even just a double take or a triple take, but you really do your research on what you're looking at and why you're looking at it, because you feel responsible. for other people. And it's incredible like that you went through that so early on in your stock trading career, which is awesome. And like, just to break that down to summarize for anybody that is getting into any sort of trading, basically what Angela's saying is the quicker that you can find a group that you can be on, talks with, even whether it's messaging or whether it's on a call, and be vocalizing what you're getting in and out of. That way you're held responsible for what you're doing.
I remember one of the best advice that was given by Adriano, our pro trader, is he said, very similar to what you're saying, is even if you don't have anybody to talk to, record yourself and make you call out the trades to yourself and then listen back to it. And you'll realize very quickly, how awful you are, or in the situation when you had a lot of conviction, like what it felt like, and because hearing yourself back is all about that, as you said, vocalizing is taking your trading to another level, because it forces you to funnel all your thoughts more concisely into a coherent message. So what you thought might be good in your head, once you spit it out, you're like, ooh, that I wasn't nearly as prepared as I thought I was. I didn't have my stops ready. I didn't really know why I was getting into it. Now that I talk about it, I can't even convince myself why I would have gotten into that trade.
Yeah.
And it's not as hard as what you think. Like, just to give a bit of background, so Angela's actually been somewhat of a mentor to me over the last 4 or 5 months. And I remember when we started calling out the trades, I was like, I am going to get grilled for these trades, but it's always something subtle. And when, because you might call it out. And I remember when I started calling out trades, and even still, Angela would be like, and I'd be like, oh, God damn. So it's funny how that works. But sorry, we got a little bit off track there. So you started paper trading, you got into these tag groups, and you found such an awesome little core group with the group that you were with. And then how did that escalate from there?
So let's see, we started that study group pretty early on. So even when I was paper trading, we were studying and doing things together. I remember distinctly, I had already switched to my regular account, but it wasn't for very long. I stayed with that platform, and it was super laggy, and it had, so just to let everyone know who doesn't know, primarily the way I trade when I trade stocks or day trade options for that matter, it's for the first 30 minutes to hour of the morning, and then that's it. And so with that being said, having a laggy platform is not going to work, period. And I remember it was because it was during the time when Ameritrade and Schwab were emerging, and it was a week's worth of just chaos when the market would open. And I was just very impatient with it. And I pulled the plug and switched over to one that had direct access. So now, I trade with Cobra and use DOS as my trading, and I use TradingView as my charting. And yeah, I one of the the most important, there's two most important things I can think of within that, just that first year. And it was Kim Ann Curtin, right, the Wall Street coach, when she says exactly, and it resonated with me because it's exactly what I told myself early on. She was like, you know, compare equals despair. If you compare yourself to the other people around you or your mentors or people that have been doing this longer than you, you know, you're never going to be happy with yourself. You're never going to be satisfied with where you're at. You know, you're not them, you're you. And I think, like, I remember she told us all to write it down on a piece of paper, and I'm sure like 99% of people didn't, but I did. And I left it up on my wall. And I would look at it all the time and every day. And when I would be upset that I felt like I wasn't where I should be, or I wasn't, you know, able to get around this emotional, a lot of trading is between our ears. So it's always like a battle with ourselves, right? And sometimes if you just have something else going on personal in your life and you're trying to force yourself to trade, you're not going to beat yourself. Like, it's just not going to work. So I don't know. I think that was a really big point where I could actually be at the desk, be at the market, and not take a trade because I knew I was mentally not there or emotionally not there. So that was a big turning point. And then choosing stops first. So I think that was my next big change in my career. That changed like everything. You know, I think it's really normal for us, like our brain automatically wants to say like, oh, well, if I want to risk $100 and I have, you know, X amount of shares, I'll stop out at $1, right? And then I'll lose my $100 at this dollar if it goes down $1, if the stock goes down $1. And I think that's just like easy math, and that's just kind of like where our brains go. But one of our other mentors, the one you had on last week, Ricky, you know, it was like pounding it in our heads. He was like, stop first. You pick your stop first, and then you pick your amount of shares, like your position size. And I was like, wait, no, that, like, I couldn't get my brain to wrap around that. And like, I had to really, really, really like break it down. And studied with it in our group and all talked about it and argued about it and cried about it. And finally all came to an understanding of what that really means and how you're able to identify what you're willing to risk before you ever get into the trade. So if you get stopped out, you already knew. It's not a surprise number. You already knew what the amount was going to be. And Ricky always says, don't risk more than 1% of your account. When I first started, I wasn't even risking 1%. Like, because I knew I was just starting, you know what I mean? And like, I knew that I was like, okay, well, if people like him are risking 1%, I'm going to risk even less because I'm still learning, you know, and I really allowed myself that period of time. You know, the disadvantages, I don't think I gave myself enough credit when I was kind of starting to progress. I kept myself in training wheels for a really long time. So there's definitely ups and downs to being on both sides.
You are so much more safer than most people. That's awesome. When you were setting your stops and deciding to base off of that, you decide how many shares to purchase. Do you use a calculator or do you have a little Excel program that you're using, or use that all in your head?
So yeah, at first I tried to do it in my head. We have an Excel sheet, you know, that we kind of have, actually Ricky provided the first copy out to the members, and there's a lot of different variations of it now. And some people have it printed out so they can have it up on their computer and they see it. Some people have memorized it from using it so long. I actually tried to do that, but every time I would try to size up, I would get all thrown off, like, because it would be like all the numbers would change, right? And I had this little issue with my fingers and my keyboard where if I'm in a hurry or in a rush, sometimes my fingers will flip the numbers that I'm trying to do. So I would get extra nervous and cautious about that, and it would just make it worse. So Cobra has a hotkey. DOS has a hotkey, I'm sorry, that I stumbled upon and it actually calculates everything for me. So I'm literally able to tell the chart, like, hey, click here, this is my stop. I already have it scripted in my code, what I'm willing to risk, right? And it determines my share sizes for me. So TradingView also has a similar tool for that, the long and short tool that calculates it for you as well. So there's definitely ways that you could do it yourself, and there's ways that you could have help to have it done.
Amazing.
I love that. It's such a turning point, like doing it seems so backwards, and it's so funny watching people go through it, because I went through it. I mean, we all went through it, and it seems so simple looking back. You're like, yeah, you find your stop, and then you figure out how much you risk, and then you're like, it makes sense. But then you are like, it took me so long, and everyone so long to grasp the fact that you've got to kind of go backwards first.
I'm still stuck on the fact of just how disciplined you've been, and like, we're always talking about capital preservation, like staying in the game, and that's essentially what you've described. You've been so good at, is that because you've had training wheels on so long, because you've always done trading less than 1%, because you paper traded for 5 months, you have been able to preserve your capital, so you haven't had that big blow up your account situation. And that, I think, makes you very unique. And I hope that any viewers that are watching this, whether they're amateur traders or complete beginners, like, take note of that. Be patient. Don't expect everything from you right away. Everything takes time. And knowing that if it's going to take time, do not take unnecessary risks.
Allow yourself that opportunity to be wrong. I mean, Ricky says it when he explains the 1% rule. I mean, we're going to be wrong, you guys, no matter what. That's going to happen, right? And it doesn't matter what strategy you use, like, you're going to be wrong. And Brian Lee always talks about that too, right? How to factor that into your strategy to expect it. I can't take credit for all of these my journey of the last 2 years. I mean, it was 100% everything to do with, I had, access to amazing people and amazing mentors that genuinely gave us the tools that we needed to be able to make this all possible, right?
Just to reiterate that as well, that is truetrader.net, which is what she's talking about, and all those mentors.
Yes. There's not many places you can go to and have access to the mentors or the pros pretty much anytime you need, to ask any question, to look at any chart. I mean, I remember the first time I submitted my trades to be critiqued, to another mentor, Linus, who is known for being like the most disciplined trader I think anybody's ever seen in their life. And like, I couldn't sleep that night. I was so nervous, and so, like, I hadn't felt that way in a really long time about something, of what he was going to say and how I did on that trade. But just having those things accessible, just like what you're doing with Alpha Traders, right? Bringing people in that have been around in the industry to your community members to be able to coexist and ask questions and learn from. It's the same idea. Not things like that are pretty difficult. You go to other communities, you're not able to have that support ecosystem. You know what I mean? Like at your fingertips, anytime you need it, whenever you need it. And that's huge. And a lot of people don't take advantage of that. And that's very unfortunate. Things may be things that you're going through. Nobody knows that you're going through it unless you speak about it, unless you reach out and say that you need some help, or you need some guidance, or, hey, can you look over this for me? Or I just can't figure this out. And I guarantee you, especially I know with you guys, if they reach out, they will get help. But if they don't reach out and they suffer in silence.
Yeah, and just a shout out for our club, guys, with Alpha Traders Country Club. We're trying to make it as accessible as possible for anybody to ask any questions. We're always there to discuss. We're not pretending to be pros. We have pros in there, but I'm always there to just talk about with anybody about their trading, you know, and as you said, like, it's all about just sending out the signals and the messages of asking for help, asking questions. Don't be afraid to talk in our group, guys. Like, not everybody, you know, I know we have people that are flexing their trades, which is great because it gets us all pumped up, but don't be afraid to share a trade that you've struggled with, or maybe, you know, something that's not going well for you in your trading. Talk about it. We've got a lot of people in our Discord that are there to support each other.
100%. And I guarantee you there's somebody else. If you ask a question, I promise you there's somebody else that has that same exact question. So you'll be helping more than just yourself.
Just to change gears just a little bit, now that you are off your training wheels and you have had time to figure out what works for you, can you talk to us a little bit about your personal strategy of like what's making you your best trades? Like you said, you're doing option day trading. I'm really curious to hear about what that looks like, or your morning trading. Can you explain a little bit about your strategies?
Sure. So the options came in later down the road, about almost, I don't know, I studied options for like almost 6 or 8 more months before I actually started trading options. And I opened a separate options account, but I just peeled off the minimum. Like I peeled off like $2,000 off my main account and put it in an options account, and, you know, let that be. And I started off doing kind of like some swings, some longer term swings with options, but I would use like credit spreads or debit spreads, and kind of learned the whole process that way with options, and then peeled them apart. And it doesn't matter if you're trading stocks or if you're trading options or whatever, like it's really all the same. It's just a matter of what vehicle you use to trade it. You can use the same setup in multiple different ways, right? You could use stocks or you could use options in the same exact setup many times. But my personal strategy is the strategy that I feel like most of us are most familiar with, is the first hour of the morning. We kind of use that emotional imbalance that when the market first opens, then the really fast, quick emotional moves into strong levels of support or resistance, and play it for the reversal. So, you know, I think having learned that strategy first, that really helps, honestly, with the FOMO of like when you see a stock starting to run and it's going up so fast, it's like natural for us to be like, oh man, everyone's making it and I'm not. Let me get in here. And then you get in and it starts going the other way. Our strategy, the strategy that I do the most, is the complete opposite. So, and options is no different, Martin. So, you know, obviously theta can work in your favor a lot of times. So the volatility can help you whenever you're selling the option. So depending on, I know you're used to selling your calls, covered calls and things like that. And if you're holding shares, 100%, that's a no-brainer why you wouldn't do that, right? But you can also scalp with them, or I know a lot of people do what they call the lotto trades on Friday. Same idea, right? And you can, but on these volatile days, you can definitely use that theta to your favor when you're closing it out.
Awesome. I think we would be amiss not to ask a little bit more in detail about what some of those terms mean that you just mentioned.
Sure.
So for example, you said a lotto trade on the Fridays. Like, what is that? What are we talking about?
So a lotto trade is a terminology that options traders use because different options have different expiration dates, and 100% of the time you'll find them when they expire on a Friday. So that means everything's expiring on the same day.
It's a bit like Martin expires on a Friday.
It sounded familiar to me too. I wasn't sure though.
Anyway, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
They expire on the Friday. So basically they don't have very much time left in the contract. An option is a contract. So with that being said, as time of the contract of the option degresses and goes down,
Which is your theta, right?
Which is your time is theta. That's correct. It starts to, they use the word burn, right? And theta starts to burn and your time runs out. And so with that being said, you can get them on Friday, buy them on Friday, knowing they expire that same exact day for really, really cheap, for very, very inexpensive. Disadvantages, they need to work out right away and you need to close them out when you get that profit. Because if you hold on to it, that time continues to burn. Then when they expire, they're not worth anything. So the reason why people like those so much is because they're able to buy into those options very inexpensively on those mornings on Fridays.
And
so
are we
those are
typically
same-day
talking
expirations.
I'm sorry, are we typically talking about options on the SPY or the indexes?
Doesn't matter. SPY, indexes, stocks, they all have them on Fridays. I personally love when I'm scalping or if I'm day trading and with an option, one of my favorite ones to day trade is the SPY because it doesn't have expiration just on Friday. It has expirations on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
And it's super liquid, I assume.
Extremely liquid. So it's the best of both worlds in a lot of ways, and your options there, and what you're able to do with it. So that was definitely where when I stopped doing. Well, I never stopped. I guess when I started to include the day trading option side of things, the SPY was definitely my favorite vehicle to use for that.
Great. And then the other strategy for your trading is you're doing credit spreads.
So swings. I mean, you can a swing meaning, something that you hold for longer than a few days, maybe a few weeks, possibly even a few months, a year. Once you start to get over like a year or two, then you start to kind of becomes more of an investment. But yeah, anything that you're going to hold long term, meaning short term to mid-term swing, you could use with buying shares, or you could do options as well. I mean, I know I did credit spreads because I was learning, right? And with spreads, you have one side of both contracts of the option, so your risk is limited. Your upside is also limited, but I wasn't worried about that. My risk was limited, so I couldn't, blow my account unknowingly, not understanding completely what they were all about.
So do you recommend for traders that are still progressing in the journey of what works best for them to always be using those kind of spreads when they get into options, or is naked options a good place to kind of start to learn? What do you recommend?
So I don't recommend anything because that would be financial advice, and I'm not giving any of that. I feel like the norm is, doing just regular calls and puts and sometimes naked ones and covered. I feel like that's the norm of what people learn first. It is a little hard to wrap your head around combining those two of those things together, and then trying to peel them apart to understand them individually. But again, when I heard like, oh, there's a way I can do this, learn about these, and have my risk defined, like, and not have to worry about, like, with naked options, obviously you have unlimited risk, right? And it could be really bad, and if you don't understand them, you could end up in a world of hurt and not even know what just happened. So I would definitely not suggest naked for anyone new, but maybe if you covered calls are always safe if you're going to go that route, or just buying calls and buying puts. You could definitely go that route, because at least if it expires and goes to nothing, you're only going to lose what you spent on that contract. But again, I was really focused on my day trading strategy, right? So like as I was getting more comfortable with that, and I was learning about options at night, it wasn't primary on my book to throw everything into options. So I was like, okay, the way I'll do this is I'll stay focused on my stock trading, and I can learn about options on the side, slow and easy. I'll do these long-term swing plays, and I'll do them. I chose to do them with credit spreads and debit spreads, and allow weeks, if not months of time for them to evolve, and I continue to learn, and I can close them out if I can or whatever in the meantime. So I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself to be like, okay, you're learning about stocks and here you go. Why don't you just add options to your plate? It was much more like, focus on your stocks, study a little bit about options at night, and put the options on the back burner. And the best way for me to have done that is what I felt I did, which was just not adding it to my plate rather, but just like I said, giving it months and months and months to play out while I watch how it works.
What platform are you using to trade options?
Tastyworks. I like Tastyworks for options because it has a visual, like their scale and everything. I mean, I know all of the platforms have that. It's just if I'm not mistaken, some of the guys from TD Ameritrade, Thinkorswim originally went, and they're actually the ones who made the development team or whatever of the way Tastyworks is set up. So it's like, they took all the good stuff from there and then made it a little bit better. And I'm very much a visual learner. So being able to see the way they have it all set up was much easier for me than reading the table and trying to figure out how they have options listed. It made more sense when I was learning. Now, of course, I can look at a table and understand, but then it was super confusing, and that helped me a lot in that regard.
I know that we talked quite a bit about options, but I think it's relevant because, especially with a lot of people that are just getting into trading, options is the first thing that they're attracted to, because most people are coming in with small accounts.
And they think they can get big gains, right?
So if somebody comes in with $2,000, hey, I can't day trade with that. We got pattern PDT, pattern day trading restrictions. I'm going to put it into options. I'm not looking for recommendations. What's your opinion on that?
So, I already told you that's what my options account started with too. The thing with that is it's no different than why people get into small caps when they first start, right? They can get more shares, they can make more money, and the gains are bigger profit-wise. When you have bigger gains, you can also have bigger losses. So you can faster losses. When you have faster gains, you can also have faster losses. So you can't just always look at what can I make off this? What can I gain off this? You really have to look at how much can I lose off this as well. How fast could I lose off? If I messed up and got 20 trades in a row wrong, or messed up on my order, or didn't know how to use my platform, whatever the case may be, how many times can I mess up in a row and still be left standing? I feel like that's much more of an important question.
That's the mindset shift, I think, that everybody needs to go through at some point, is how much can I lose in this rather than how much can I make? Because the more blindsided you are and how much you can possibly make, the less of a plan you have or emotional control you have as it starts to go against you, knowing firsthand exactly how that is. Because, I, as well as many other people, went through that same phase of getting in, small account, small caps, I'm going to make a lot. Wow, I can lose a lot real quick. And then, it's not until you start thinking about how much can you lose. And we even touched on that last week when we were talking about NFTs as well, like transfers in any market. You need, like, just thinking about, yes, this might be a great investment. Yes, there might be a lot of upside, but you need to weigh your risk on, like, how much could I possibly lose on this if it does go wrong? And if it does go wrong, is it worth the risk?
And I feel, and to add to that, holding forever is not a strategy. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, everybody, that's not a strategy. Like, you can't buy into something that is not a good investment or turns out to be not a good investment and just be like, well, that's okay, I'll just continue to hold. and hope and pray to the gods above and to the moons and to Buddha and everyone else that something miraculously turns around for me. Like, you have to cut your losses at some point. And so like being able to understand like where that line in the sand is prior to, I think is very helpful. Like,
I'm a victim of that for sure.
You make that agreement. So the reasons we make plans, right? So 99% of what we do is done after hours, right? All the work, all the preparation is done after hours. When we come to the desk and actually trade, that's the least amount of work we do of the entire week, right? Most of it is setting charts, looking at setups, reading the news, like whatever is relevant to whatever we're focusing on our strategy. I mean, studying, learning new things, prepping, all that's done after hours, but we make our plan before we get in our trade. So, and this goes for any market, you make your plan and you make that agreement with yourself. So when you're actually in the moment, you don't have to fight those emotions as bad. You'll still have those emotions. FOMO and greed and all those things are very real. And if you don't know, definitely, they definitely have to do with your, like, you can almost feel like one of our mentors say, right? Like Kim, what she says is you can literally fill in the blank the word fear or greed or FOMO in with any, need or universal need that you are not getting in your everyday life. So if you need excitement, and that's a non-negotiable need for you, you need excitement. And if you're not getting that in your everyday life, it will like come out in what you're doing in the decisions that you're making, especially when it comes to trading and markets. So whatever those are, that we all have a list of universal needs that we're not able to negotiate on. Like, there's just no questions asked. We need X, Y, and Z, some of them being air, food, water, right? Rest. But there's a long list of others too. And we have to get those away from the screens. Like, we have to leave the computers to get those. Otherwise, we're gonna be less effective when we're trading.
Speaking of the hours that you spend after the market or after your trades, that all that work that goes into it, we have a question from Tom who says, how do you track your trades?
So I actually use a platform called TradeMetria, and that's how I track my trades. It automatically goes in from my broker directly into TradeMetria, and I'm able to analyze everything there. And then it has the TradingView charts under it with my entries and my exits for me. And yeah, that's what I use. But early on, I used Excel. I feel like that's kind of what we all use at some point, and some people still, for sure. But yeah, that's what I use now to track my trades.
And how much time do you
use it?
Whoa!
I just think it's super in depth. Like, instead of me just inputting, because I've used numerous platforms to track my trades, but I find that I just input the data and then walk away. Whereas if I'm in Excel, I have to deep dive on the trade to be able to input everything. So yeah, I've tried different things, but Excel for me is what I find.
Do you spend much time? Oh, I'm sorry. No, I interrupted. Do you spend much time analyzing your trades every day, or you do it like every week? Do you have certain metrics that you're looking for?
So yeah, so this is actually something we do as a group as well. So part of TradeMetria is it has two different journals. It has a trade journal, and then it has a journal, right? So you can talk about, I woke up late today, I had an argument with my wife or my husband or whatever. And you can tag those journals with however you want to tag them, disciplined, undisciplined, because obviously I think that was another big thing, right? Was not counting my good days as if I made money. My good days were if I was disciplined, and not counting my bad days that I lost money. I could have traded phenomenally and still lost money, because we're not going to win every trade. We're not going to be right every time. But was I disciplined, and did I stick to my rule? So I started tagging in my journal those kind of keywords. And the way that I do it, to get back to your original question, is we do it as a group. So every month we submit our journal reports. So like our progress reports, our monthly progress reports. Here's the thing. Nobody else can do any of this stuff for you, right? If somebody says, hey, do your progress report, this monthly progress report, and you just click it in and stick it up there, then that's fine. And that's what you did, right? But considering we're all doing it together and we're going to all talk about it, we individually have to do the work, right? So like my study buddies can't be like, hey, Angelo, let me go through your trades for you because you're not going to do it, right? I have to do that myself. So, I mean, I do that every month at the end of the month. And then I also do it on the weekends. The reason I do it on the weekends and not the day of is because the day of the trade, I'm still emotionally attached to the trade. So I might be a little biased to what I thought I saw or what I wanted to see versus if I let the week compile and then go over them on the weekends, I lose a lot of that. That helps me.
I sort of want to just pivot this conversation a little bit because I know that you've recently moved, not moved, but started exploring NFTs and the NFT side of things. And me and you sort of bounce off each other a little bit for different NFTs. You've introduced me to some incredible groups and some incredible people. But like, how was that transition for you into NFTs, and what have you brought in from your first couple of years in trading stocks and options, and how have you brought that into NFTs? And like what kind of projects you're into, like just pivoting that conversation a little bit.
And the flip side of that too, how is it different?
Okay, so I feel like the core fundamentals are the same no matter what. It doesn't matter really what market it is or how you do it. Like, you're always looking in, if you're going to hold something for longer than 5 minutes, it's an investment that you have to consider, right? Like, why would I want to be willing to put my money into this company or this project for months, right? Why am I trusting this project for months with my money, right? Why would I do this? It's no different. It's like you're basically looking at a bunch of startup companies and you have to consider, which ones would you put your money into? Like Amazon's going to be a little bit less expensive now, right? But not everyone can go and buy, 1,000 shares of Amazon. So they would look for less expensive companies. I mean, but which companies would they be? They would have to be willing to do that research and weigh out the pros and cons. And I feel like it's no different with NFTs. You have to do your research. You can't just, hey, this influencer said such and such was a good idea, so I'm going to go and use all my savings or all my money I have and throw it into this without looking into who are these people? What are they saying they're going to do? How are they going to come up with the money to do what they're going to do? How long is it going to take? Is it a scalable idea? So if they don't make all that money, are they still going to be able to, allow some of that growth or not? Like, you have to look at it as an actual investment in the people. And sometimes investments start off great and then turn south, and that's okay too. Like, but you still have to be able to understand and be willing to either cut your losses and accept that, you used your best judgment and it was wrong or not. And it's no different. It's no different. It's the same. And in that regard, how is it different, Martin? Well, I certainly don't get, it's certainly not all trace. It's not all blockchain. Like, I won't go into that huge rabbit hole, right? But I think with the NFTs and the whole side of it, and the way that you're able to track everything and everything can be literally funneled down on the blockchain is huge. The smart contract in and of itself is huge. I feel like everything, and fast forward 5-10 years, I feel like everything is going to be smart contract. That's how we're going to buy a car. That's how we're going to buy a house. That's how we're going to rent anything. That's how we're going to go to the movies. I feel like everything's going to be smart contract. So,
which is mind blowing.
Which is like crazy. Yeah. Right. But it's so exciting and it's so awesome. When internet was first coming out, if everybody would have put their life on it, that America Online was going to be everyone's internet forever and ever and ever and always. Right. I mean, that was the first one out, and that's what everyone was using. And we had email with America Online and messaging and all this stuff. They were very innovative in the space.
We probably have a lot of viewers that don't know what you're talking about. So
So when the internet boom was coming out, which is very similar to, has similar vibes to now. It's something new, exciting, things that we've never seen before. America Online sent out CD discs in the mail to everyone and their mom. It came in and we put it in our 1990s computers CD drive and dialed up to the internet, and would take like hours to load a picture, but everyone thought it was so cool. And you could instant message with people for the first time. It was the first ones out the gate.
good old days.
The good old days.
But
I have a question.
Your point
Go
though, sorry, your point was though, is that you shouldn't have invested in AOL because that's not around anymore.
But everyone would have bet, everybody would have bet that would have been. And I guess to my point with that, right, is that like nobody knows which one's going to be the last one standing. Nobody knows. You can only do your due diligence, make your best judgment, and believe in your decision, and don't let others affect your decision, especially others you don't even know anything about or know for that matter.
I've got a question, and the question is because you are really good at doing your due diligence. God, that's a tongue twister every time. And you seem to, you are invested in some incredible projects. ATCC for one of them. I know you're quite heavily into the whitelist, as we all are. And you are doing well with your NFT. So, what kind of strategy do you have with NFTs? Are you using NFTs to buy and to hold and use utility forever as an investment, or are you also flipping NFTs as well? And if so, like how do you go about that?
So I do both. I think it's important that we don't do 100% of the same exact thing. We want to have a little bit of we want to be diversified, right? And for those ones that that I consider like I'm getting in early on something for later down the road, such as you guys are offering so much now too, though. So I don't think I can really put you in that category. I mean,
you haven't seen nothing yet. You haven't seen nothing yet.
I know. I can only imagine. I can't wait. But there's definitely those that I'm going to hold on to for down the road due to utility, right? And for those particular ones, I bet on the team. It's the people. Like it is well over 70% the people and the team running the actual project, right? Are they previous business owners? Do they have any idea how to run a business, right? How to even make this possible? Because as we all know, most first-time businesses fail. So would you want to invest in an NFT project for a long-term hold? And it's their very first time ever trying a business, because an NFT project is a business and it should be treated as such. So
do you mind sharing?
I consider.
Do you mind sharing some of the long-term holds that you have in NFTs that you like? So
Tyler just mentioned too. So the Whitelist IO is definitely a long-term hold that I have. You guys are a long-term hold that I have.
What's you guys? You guys? What's the name?
Alpha's Traders Country Club. Have you heard of them?
Yeah. From the top.
Yeah. ATCC for sure. I have to. Oh my gosh, you guys! I have an Asian sloth NFT. Like, how can I not? Like, oh my gosh!
And that's not us being racist, by the way. That's you. You asked for that. Okay,
well,
just to be clear.
Because I was like, no, you're like, we're gonna make a sloth that looks like you, and I was like, oh, this will be fun. Let's see how this sloth can look Asian, because
it was Asian. More fun than what you thought, and it was way trickier than
wasn't easy.
What any of us thought. The amount of time, the amount of back and forth it took, I was like, I really thought this would be easier. I really did.
I knew it was going to be hard. I was like, this will be, but you guys did great. You nailed it. It was super cute. Can't wait to see what the real one is going to look like. But again, it's the teams, right? It's the teams. It's the people that are, because anybody can say anything, unfortunately, right? They can make a great white paper. They can make a great roadmap and all these amazing promises. And they might have all of the best intentions, but it takes certain groups, certain people, certain passions, certain drives to actually allow those things to actually happen, right? And I think
I made a whole video on this because I've always told people, when you look at NFTs, imagine you are a venture capitalist.
Yeah,
because that's what you're doing, is you're investing in early stage businesses, and
100%.
the most important thing for a venture capitalist is going to be looking at the founders, because people can have great ideas. Lots of people have good ideas. The question is, who is the person that is going to have the capabilities to
execute
those ideas? And that's what venture capitalists do. That's what they invest in. They're investing in people, because at the end of the day, a company is essentially a group of people that agree on a common mission. Yep.
And they have to have a passion for it, right? It can't just be that because they want to make money. And you can totally tell the people that are truly passionate about what they're doing.
Yeah, that is the differentiator, is the passion, is what I've found anyway.
For Tyler,
it's not for me anyway. Yeah, like it's some people that are super knowledgeable, and some people that have just, like, they can talk and they can sell and they can promise and they can do all of the things, but you can just see that the passion's not there. And ultimately, every time, no matter how qualified and how incredible they are, passion wins. And it's like, if they don't have it, they flunk anyway. And it's
that passion is what gets you over those bumps in the road, because there's going to be all kinds of bumps in the road and crosses that you're going to have to turn and pivot and turn around and 180. And the passion is what allows you to make it through, that a million times over. And I feel like the same thing with trading goes too. So like, I knew as soon as I started getting into the market that I'd found my passion, that for the first time, like, and I loved what I did before. I really liked what I did before. I knew I had found a true passion. Like, there would never been a time in my entire life where I was so, it wasn't just a drive, right? Or focus or not giving up. It was like, I was truly loving every freaking minute of every freaking day that I was learning and doing this. So I knew.
Well, you've got a push and a pull, and exactly what you're talking about. Like, when you enjoy something, you're pushing yourself to do it. But when you, like, absolutely are fully, passionate about something, you're pulled to do it regardless. And it's like, it's exactly what you said. And me and you actually spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, and I was having a little moment, and I was like, oh my God, like, even if I like woke up tomorrow morning with like $1 million, $100 million, $1 billion, whatever, like, I'd wake up and my first thought would be like, wow, this is incredible. Second thought would be like, what NFTs can I buy? How can I trade? Like, how can I differentiate my trading now with a bigger account? Like, it's like, it's a complete pull rather than a push.
Than a push, right? And just to answer your other question, Tyler, sorry, about how do I flip my NFTs. So, I think early on, I did what everybody thinks, I think, at first, which was I would look at something that was hot or trading a lot of volume, and I would wait for the floor to come down and buy it, and then think that I could immediately sell it, from just scooping off the floor. And that is definitely a thing, and that is definitely a strategy. And I'm not saying that it doesn't work. But it's kind of hit or miss, right? And so I feel like what works best is, and I actually found a group of people that do the same exact thing. So it was super interesting, because I was like, oh, common interest, common people, right? But
Your tag.
finding right, exactly. So it's another tag. It's just like my NFT tag, and it's pretty amazing over there actually too. It's just like you guys. I mean, all these you guys are all individually doing something so amazing, and it's just like it's unbelievable to watch it all unfold. But looking at the different traits of the NFT, right, and seeing like where the floor is for each trait and how many are listed at that price for that specific trait, and then how far up does it jump. So for instance, if there's only one with this trait listed at this floor price, and then the floor price goes up to whatever, so basically I can buy that trait, that NFT with that trait for that price and that floor price, and then it would immediately raise the floor of that trait. To me, that is it made a little bit more sense to me personally than just like going and buying stuff off the floor and then expecting things to go back up, right? So I don't know, everybody's different, and I'm not saying that anything, I think everything works differently for different people, makes sense for different people. Personally, that's just what I found as far as the flipping part goes.
It's a cool strategy. I hadn't heard of that one yet. That's a good one.
Well,
we only have a few
alpha
more
for
minutes
you.
left. We have a few more minutes left. This wrapped us up in 4 minutes. So anybody that is watching, now is your time to ask any last questions before we will let Angela go.
Does anybody, because it is delayed, but
Oh,
any
gosh, I forgot
closing
about
or final thoughts on, like
Yeah,
just to wrap this up?
I have a final
regardless-
question.
Go on.
I have a final question.
Don't worry
for you.
about my question. You go.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just staring at go. We're realistically probably going to ask the same question anyway.
Well, I wrote this down and it hasn't been answered yet, but I think it's a good summary question. Now, from your progression of starting trading back in January of 2020 till now, what changes have you made from when you started to now in your psychological mindset and in your lifestyle?
Yeah, gosh, there's so many.
You're a different person, I assume. What
100%.
changes have happened?
Okay, so I remember early on, I think I studied every single day, was at the computer all day long. Like I remember a 3-day weekend would come and I would be like, oh shoot, the market's closed Monday. Like this sucks. And go kick rocks, right? Like but like I remember, and it was my computer actually died. But anyways, long story short, I was forced to take a few days off the market, and I realized I survived. Like it was okay. Like the market was going on, and I wasn't there, and I'm in one piece. So being able to allow myself that ability to not necessarily think I have to be here every stinking day, right? Like, oh, I got to make money today. Like, this is the way I'm making money. I got to make money. I got to make money every day. I got to make, like, I'm not here. I'm not making money, that type of thing. Letting that go was huge. Having, if you're healthy, just like what we were talking about before, your universal needs, if you're healthy in your everyday life and you're happy in your everyday life, you're going to be much better at what you do here. So no different. Like when you want to get your exercise, you want to eat right, you want to drink plenty of water. We can sit here for hours, guys, and not even realize it's been hours and not had anything to drink or eat. So like always keeping those kind of things around. Set a timer on your phone to go off, to take your vitamins, to drink your water, to remind you to do those things, because we will sit here and just melt in our chairs. That was something I definitely do differently now than when I first started. And I think that's probably the most important. But yeah, this has definitely changed my life for the better in so many ways. Definitely.
We have just before we log out, this is gonna be a 30-second or less question. We've got a question here from Justin from the whitelist, and he says, to be profitable, do you have to flip? Holding might build equity, but what can that get us in the current world?
To be profitable, do you have to flip. So here's the thing about unrealized gains. They're not yours until you claim them. So even when you're an investor and you have this account with all this money in it, it's not really yours until you claim some of it. So I don't think you need to flip, no. But if you're doing investments only, you still need to have enough of each to take some profits at some point along the way, not just at the end of the finish line, but like along the way, you need to pay yourself. Does that answer that question?
Buy multiple NFTs, never just buy one. Because
Yeah,
you want to be
so
able
like,
to take those profits as you go.
for sure. So like if you can afford 6, sell 3, hold 3, there's 3 pay for your other 3, hopefully, then you're break even, and anything that you can get off that is profit. And if something goes downhill and you have to do a fire sale, that's okay, because it's still profit. It might not be as much as you were hoping, but it's still a little something. So yeah, going into something, buying one NFT is a little very risky. You know what I mean? You're basically putting all your eggs in one basket, and it's got to work, and it's got to work quickly. So yeah, I would think I'd always plan for multiple. If not, then maybe look to another project.
All right.
Sure.
Well, thank you guys so much. We're going to wrap this session up with Angela. You've been awesome. I think we're all we were super looking forward to talking with you, and lived up to the expectations.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
More and more. Everybody, please, if you're not subscribing to our YouTube channel yet, do that now. And also, for any of those guys lurking here that aren't talking, come and find us in the Discord. Come and talk with us. We want to talk with you guys about trading. We don't mind shy people, but we want to know that you're there. And the only way we're going to know that you're there is if you're talking with us. So speak up, and we'll definitely
Don't suffer in silence.
Exactly.
Don't suffer in silence. And also let us know what you like about these YouTube videos, and what other discussions you would like to hear. We are completely open and always listening to our members about what kind of value you want to bring to the community. So tell us what you want, and we'll make it happen. Thank you so much, Angela. Tyler, do you have any last words?
I don't have any last words. You are the wrap up king. That was incredible.
Wow.
YouTube Live Alpha Talks. Thank you guys. Come again next week.
See you guys. Enjoy.